Can you wait? Isn't that your job? Aren't you a waiter?
Why is Cartman so angry here? Well, it's because he has resting psychopathic syndrome.
Shut up, I have anxiety.
And anxiety, allegedly. But this is Cartman. So we have to ask, does he really have anxiety? Is anxiety even a real condition? Or is it just another part of the psychobabble trash industrial complex?
You've likely encountered the common stereotype that dismisses anxiety as just a first world problem.
Maybe I'm depressed.
A so-called fake issue for spoiled individuals. This leads to anxiety being placed in the same category with always wearing headphones, smoking to show you're cooler than others, and going through an emo phase. But here's the truth. This idea is completely off base. Anxiety is absolutely a real and serious condition that affects people from all walks of life. Except for boomers. Those will just call you weak if you have anxiety. For that part, South Park gets it. The show explores what causes anxiety and how to deal with it in several episodes. Today, I'll be going over 2 episodes that I think do the best job. That's Season 21's Put It Down and Season 22's Buddha Box.
These episodes follow Tweak, PC Principal, and Vice Principal Strong Woman in their struggles with anxiety. Then we have Cartman, who tells everybody he's also struggling when he's really not. No surprise there. But it's one of those rare occurrences where it may not actually be Cartman's fault. Let's start off with Buddha Box. Now, Buddha Box starts with Cartman complaining to a therapist about how much people suck. Instead of telling him to look in the mirror, the therapist just nods along. Cartman goes on to whine about how people are always interrupting him with their own needs when all he wants to do is be on his phone. The therapist is a lot like Cartman. He doesn't like listening to people's whiny nonsense, so he's on his phone while Cartman complains away. When Cartman's done, the distracted therapist pulls a diagnosis out of thin air.
I believe that what you have is anxiety.
Cartman's biggest concern gives him away.
Anxiety? Is that key?
The therapist tells him exactly what he wants to hear.
What it really is more than anything is an excuse to be lazy and lame to everyone around you.
While the therapist does kinda have a point here, anxiety is not just an excuse to be a jerk. I could read you the dictionary definition of it, but
Who cares?
you already know what anxiety is. You feel it before you give your dad your report card, you feel it when you walk into a job interview, and you feel it when you walk past a girl you have a crush on without saying anything. But this is just normal anxiety. You may experience it once a day, once a week, or if you're an alien, once a month. Still, we all feel some level of anxiety on a regular basis. As long as episodes of anxiety are few and far between, that's normal. Anxiety only becomes a problem when it never goes away. And this is clearly not what Cartman is experiencing, as we can see from his reaction here.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
Cartman is not just a jerk anymore. He's a jerk with a medical excuse. He's the kind of kid in school who's always had a doctor's note exempting him from anything he didn't want to do. Before we go into how Cartman abuses his fake medical diagnosis, let's look at the people who aren't actually pretending. And that's PC Principal and his secret baby mama, Strong Woman. As you know, or maybe you don't know, PC Principal knocked up his vice principal. But they work together and in South Park, and so that's beyond gross. Even Randy, who's also performed some pretty disgusting unnatural acts with bats and pangolins, puked his guts out when he discovered them in bed together. This non-PC affair resulted in quintuplets, which Strong Woman can't take to daycare because everybody would discover that PC Principal is the dad. So, the secret lovers have to watch over their 5 crying babies on their own while juggling work and constantly wrestling with the anxiety of getting discovered. The couple copes with this constant anxiety by distracting themselves with their phones. It's hard to worry about how much your life sucks when you're randomly scrolling through TikTok and constantly checking on the likes on your little dance. And then there's Tweak in the episode Put It Away. His is the most extreme cause of anxiety that South Park portrays. He is freaking out so hard over the possibility of a nuclear war with North Korea that he can't even speak in coherent sentences. He just screams. From South Park's depiction, we see that all anxiety comes from this level of uncertainty. You don't feel anxiety when you go hang out with your friends because you kinda know how it's gonna go down. But you do feel anxious before a first date or maybe a job interview because you don't know what will happen. Anxiety is your body's natural response, and it's actually a good one. This sense of dread brings about your fight or flight response. This allows you to act. If you're on a first date or a job interview, you tend to notice everything, kinda hyper aware of what's going on. Your brain registers and processes every verbal and non-verbal cue because it feels like your life depends on this. It's also the same when you see an angry pit bull running at you. The anxiety primes your body to run very fast and save yourself. But is there such a thing as too much anxiety? A little bit of anxiety allows you to act. You see a dangerous dog, you get anxious and you run. But if you get too anxious, you freeze, you tense up, unable to move. And freezing is horrendous. It's actually happened to me once. The first time I tried getting myself a girlfriend, actually. It all started when my parents sent me to boarding school at 14 because somebody had to tell them about the quality of education there and how good it was. As if that wasn't enough, Mom and Dad picked a boys-only school because they didn't want me getting anybody pregnant. Just add that to the long list of all the times my parents overestimated my abilities. I literally had zero interest in girls before I hit puberty. They always snitched and I didn't like that. But when I hit puberty, I started liking girls, but I was way too terrified to go anywhere near one. My school had this tradition where the girls from the nearby Catholic school would come and visit once a semester. Our teachers and their nuns chaperoned every interaction to prevent us from trying anything, but that didn't matter. Where there's a will, there's a way. When the only woman you've seen in 3 months are your 6-year-old biology teacher and the 300-pound cook, nothing can ruin the fun of meeting girls your own age. So after a lot of egging on from my friends, I worked up enough courage to approach this girl. Cute, petite, probably the best thing I've ever seen outside of a magazine in a whole long time. But when I got there, my throat got clogged. Still, I managed to at least stretch out my hand and squeeze out a, "Hey, what's your name?" She smiled, shook my hand, and said, "Gloria, what's yours?" She was so pretty, her voice was soft, and her hands so warm that my brain went blank. I couldn't remember my own bloody name. She was still holding my palm, and I started sweating a little bit, which made me freak out even more. I stayed there, frozen in time, trying to remember my own name, until a nun came by and ripped my hand away from Gloria's, mumbling something about inappropriate contact or something like that. That's when I remembered my name. But that moment was dead. I had blown it harder than a trombone player. And that's what too much anxiety does. It makes you feel completely unable to function. But even excess anxiety can go away. Anxiety only becomes a medical problem when it doesn't go away. But where does chronic anxiety come from? Medically, well, no one really knows. We know that a disease like malaria comes from mosquitoes, the plague comes from fleas,
Gonorrhea comes from a guy named Brody.
but nobody really exactly knows where medical conditions like anxiety and depression come from. The prevailing theory is that they're caused by some chemical imbalance in the brain. But it's just that, a theory. And nobody knows what causes those chemical imbalances in the first place. Nevertheless, South Park knows exactly what causes anxiety. It's so obvious. In fact, I'm surprised we don't have some sort of revolutionary medicine coming out. It's cell phones and Donald Trump. Or, well, I guess in South Park it would be his in-universe stand-in, Mr. Garrison. The 2 episodes, Buddha Box and Put It Down, can be summarized as Phones Bad and Orange Man Bad. In Put It Down, Tweek is increasingly freaked out by tweets from the president, who is daring North Korea to attack America. This, of course, is a reference to Donald Trump's erratic tweeting habits during his presidency. I'd rather not get into the politics of it all. South Park already got criticized to hell and back for its pronounced political bias during the presidency. I see no point in rehashing the whole thing out, but please, feel free to start a war in the comment section. I could definitely use the engagement. The point is, as the tweets keep escalating, Tweek freaks out more and more. In Buddha Box, while the source of his anxiety is still external, people have control over it. They just prefer to surrender. The Buddha Box is just that, a box that allows you to shut out the outside world and focus on your phone like God intended. Obviously, Cartman is the first one to adopt it. He becomes a phone-addicted zombie, using his Buddha Box in class, on the soccer field, and at the water park.
Go! Go!
When he is sent to principal's office, PC Principal learns of the Buddha Box and buys 2, one for himself and for the vice principal. As mom and dad bury themselves in their boxes, their PC babies go wandering around protesting everything. Buddha boxes become a full-blown epidemic as Cartman starts a campaign to get all residents a box so they can shut out the outside world and reduce their anxiety.
In the Hindu religion, there's a saying, Namaste. It means, you, I have anxiety.
But are phones as bad as South Park says? Well, it depends. Yes, phones causes more anxiety than anything else we have today. When you think about it, what are we really doing on our phone? Checking emails, scrolling social media, texting, watching other people do things while you do nothing, essentially. All of these things just increase uncertainty, and uncertainty increases anxiety. When you're texting and you watch those three dots appear and disappear, that's increasing your anxiety. When you get left on red after you ask a question, it causes anxiety. When you see people your age flaunting their lavish lifestyles on social media while you're struggling, it creates anxiety. What the hell am I doing with my life? When you scroll through dating apps, it causes anxiety. When you check the maps and wonder why your DoorDash driver has stopped in the same spot for 20 minutes with your food, that causes anxiety. When you wake up with 0 notifications, it causes anxiety. Nobody cares about me. When you wake up with too many notifications, it causes anxiety. How am I gonna answer them all? When you combine all of those things over the course of a day, or worse, an hour, you get a disgusting amount of anxiety. Then there's the news, the trends, and the insecurities. When Skibbity Toilet went viral, I had terrible anxiety. It was the first meme that I didn't understand right out the gate. And I'm a Gen Zer, and yet I still feel old sometimes. My generation should be the one making up all the slang, but I find myself Googling terms like yat, gooning, and phantom tax. There's almost this unspoken requirement to stay on top of everything or be considered an absolute fossil. This constant need to stay updated on everything causes us to obsess over things that shouldn't objectively matter. And even if they do, a lot of the stuff we obsess over is stuff we can't change. Obsessing over your DoorDash driver's route, or when the other guy is going to reply, only makes you feel more powerless. And that only worsens the anxiety. South Park shows all of this in an episode that a lot of people criticize for being too anti-phone. The thing that has been proven to make people happy over and over again is a strong societal connection. But phones have destroyed those, utterly. In Buddha Box, parents don't watch their kids' soccer games, lovers don't talk to each other, and when a good Samaritan warns Cartman that he's about to get hit by a car, the little brat yells at him for interrupting quality time with his phone. People are just buried in their phones. This self-imposed social isolation is terrible for our mental health because of all the societal connections it destroys. We used to have friends that we shared our lives with. Now we have followers that we flex on. Just think about that word, follower. What does that imply? You can't share the bad bits about your life with followers. You can only share the best bits, or they'll stop following you. You can only post photos of you in the front of the Eiffel Tower. You don't post the 10-hour flight, the cavity search at the airport, or the horror of breathing the same air that has just passed through a million unwashed French armpits. So this brings me back. Are phones bad? It all depends on how much you use them. Anything can be bad if you overuse it. Even water can become toxic if you drink way too much of it. Your kidneys can process about 1 liter of water per hour. That's 1/4 gallon in freedom units. Drink more than that in an hour, and you're definitely risking your life. So, just put the phone down. Problem solved, right? Of course not. I can't even go to the can without my phone. This is like telling poor people just get rich. It's technically good advice, but implementing it is infinitely more complicated. So, how do you deal with anxiety? How do you just put down your own phone? In Buddha Box, PC Principal and Strong Woman are constantly anxious about being judged for their relationship. They can't do any couple stuff together or even co-parent their children.
And you're the father?
No! I am her superior at work!
Don't be ridiculous!
But then they realize that people are so buried in their phones that nobody notices. So they just kiss in front of the distracted parents in the auditorium and take their kids to the park in broad daylight. Nobody notices. So what's the message here? Your fear of social judgment is based on a false reality. People don't care that much about you. They're so engrossed in their own lives that they just will barely notice you. Take a simple problem that we've all struggled through with at some point, repeating an outfit. You wore that shirt last Tuesday. Will people notice if you wear it again today? Think of it this way. How many people do you know? How many of their outfits do you remember? Do you even care what they wear day to day? That's exactly how they feel about you. Unless you wear the exact same outfit over the next several days in a row. Nobody is gonna notice, especially if you rotate your wardrobe. Simply stop caring. That's the cure for social anxiety. Even when you mess up, most people will quickly forget. I remember back in school, I was so embarrassed when I bombed on my first approach. I thought my friends would taunt me about it for the rest of my life, but they only taunted me for about 2 days. Then a guy called Welch got caught playing with his hot dog in the classroom while everyone was at PE, and he became the new target of ridicule. I am now the only person who still remembers my epic fail. And my memory isn't even that good. Will I still remember Gloria's name? I can't remember her face. It's all blurry. If I met her, I probably wouldn't even recognize her. And she probably wouldn't even recognize me if she met me either. I was a short and skinny 14-year-old boy. Since she last saw me, I've definitely gone through a bit of a growth spurt. I'm just not short and skinny anymore. Just tall and skinny. Well, actually, not tall. More like 5'11 and a half, but I 100% identify as a 6-footer because I always wear shoes with thick soles. So screw social anxiety and just do it. If that doesn't work for you, you can use some of the steps people use to deal with chronic anxiety. When Tweek has a full freakout over World War III, Craig advises him to do something about it. So Tweek bakes cupcakes for Kim Jong-un. This doesn't work because the president tweets more aggravating stuff and it ruins all the goodwill that Tweek has earned, but it is a good idea. Experts advise exposure therapy. If you're scared of something, just do it over and over and over again until that fear is gone. Take something like approach anxiety, a problem I struggled with as a teenager, and one that you've probably struggled with in life. Back in boarding school, I was roommates with an older student. After I bombed my first approach, he gave me a piece of advice that eventually earned me the girlfriend I so desperately desired. My roommate told me to avoid approaching girls I was attracted to. He told me to approach the girls I didn't want instead. Because I had no expectations, I would be more relaxed. I could practice my conversation skills without worrying about saying the perfect things every single time. And if I screwed up, which I did 700 times because I had the social skills of a drunk donkey, it wasn't a big deal at all. I realized that even though I wasn't any good at this rizzing up of girls, I experienced very little anxiety when I approached girls I wasn't attracted to. I was never nervous or anxious, and I never tried to impress them. I just tried to have as much fun as possible with the conversation, which is apparently what you're supposed to do with girls you're attracted to anyway. By the time I felt more confident enough to approach the girls I was attracted to, the anxiety was almost gone. I could remember my name, speak confidently, generate some chemistry, and get phone numbers. I still got left on red, a lot, but I just treated it as practice and worked on my texting skills. And then one day, after a lot of disappointment, I met a girl who never left me on red. She's always laughed at my jokes and didn't get the ick when I double texted. She even went as far as texting first. I had no idea girls were even capable of that. She's been my girlfriend ever since. The only anxiety I have now is going back out there again and starting from scratch. The dating stories of my friends are brutal. But I suppose I should take my own advice. After all, there's no point in worrying about it if I can't change it. Apart from ignoring the occasional hint here and there, I haven't given her any reason to leave. Now, suppose somebody you care about has anxiety. How do you deal with that? Well, lucky for us, South Park has an answer for that as well. As we see with Craig and Tweek, when a friend or significant other has anxiety, telling them to get over it or offering quick solutions like just stop overreacting, control your dang emotions, or play with a fidget spinner, they don't really help. What you need to do is listen to them. Allow them to express those emotions. Listen and reflect. Say stuff like, that sucks. How does that make you feel? What do you want to do about it?
It's not about problem solving, Eric. It's about people getting together and feeling what they need to feel.
The key is to never provide the solution yourself.
Fidget spinner tweet, come on, son!
Just let them talk their way into it. Only provide gentle guidance here and there. Ask questions like why, how, and are you sure? That's what Craig does with Tweek. This is also how therapy works. Therapists just let their patients talk. They listen, empathize, and guide. Most people know what they need to do. They just don't like being told, do this, do that. So therapists let them talk themselves into the solution. This is what friends used to do, but we don't have those anymore. We have iPhone 14s and followers who will ditch us the moment we get out of fashion, annoy them in some insignificant way, or just become boring. So, if you don't want to spend $200 an hour on a therapist, go make some real friends. Namaste.